Well, good afternoon, folks. It's Lynn Johnson again. Yes, with another GOM'S Gospel, the grumpy old man's gospel. Number 10. Geez, I just noticed I got I got an old Bruin coat on. Yeah, I used to play with our junior hockey down here in Esteban with the Esteban Bruin hockey system many years ago. At any rate, so I'm the grumpy old Care Bear. Do I care? Well, hopefully somebody cares for me, and if you do, I'm awfully partial to oatmeal cookies. I think I've mentioned that time and time again before, but as far as moving up, well, I was on the protected list for what was it, Montreal until it was about 22, 23, but time I was 18, 19, well, by that time, Philadelphia was winning Stanley Cups with really big guys and really things. And essentially, I could skate and play with them, but I essentially was kind of beat up when I went on in life. But what was it? Winnipeg. That was back when the Canadian amateur team that played for the Olympics. Well, Carl Brewer was the coach there at the time, but my mom filled me in later, but he phoned my dad for into 19 or 20 or so and checked to see, fall training, if I might be interested. And first got, sorry, Dad, not into it anymore. And Mom told me that Carl phoned Dad for until I was about 23 or so, but then they went into the professional stuff, but I was so bust up in that by the time by junior, well, it was just best that I moved on. But my favorite hockey team, by and large, through my whole life, well, shame on me, and I had a perfectly good reason for cheering for him. My dad did when I was growing up. Everything Dad did was good. He cheered for the Montreal Canadiens, so it was a matter of principle. I did too, and for no other reason. Well, gosh darn, I like the name. But any excuse will serve somebody if they need some sort of sensible reason. So it made good sense to me, so what the heck. But today, we're going to talk about, you hear these things about the group of 7 or the 7% or the 7 steps this way or whatever. And there was one thing, what was it, somebody called the 7% solution or something? Well, just as a play on that, I'm going to talk about maybe the 7-step presentation or situation. But if you listen to my prior things about the fact that I have a lot of sales and marketing experience and a whole bunch of things going on in the background, I consulted and conferred with some people out there in terms of how to possibly, for the time being, provide some worth and a sensible reality to some people out there, so that in terms of money and basically generating some money for the value, some old executives, they made some suggestions years ago. So here it is, folks. As I say, virtual reality's got to this point that it is so real and so reproductive, and there's so much going on that, truthfully, you really can't really trust things as possibly real or not, and as well as that with Chat GPT and this, and and trust, you can't. Unless, as I said yesterday in prior things, going to the horse's mouth or something, or some matter of thing, or putting out a video or something to have there so that when a person gets there, they can see a fair representation of what you've got. Maybe go on a Zoom call and absolutely establish they're talking to a horse's mouth, confirm these things, and that's it. Because it basically, virtual reality's got so real, and the reality trying to do things, that it's so real you can't trust the reality, because with jump-ins and that and contrivances in the AI system that I can go on to an extraordinary extent of expertise and knowledge in, and my background, for the time being, so as not to torture you repetitiously, that is the truth. But that being said, For people that are out there that, and let's put it this way. For one fellow, the people saying about sales, oh, I hate sales, this, that, and the next thing. But the truth of the matter is, did you realize the world would come to a grinding halt without salesmen or without the selling process? Because it's on basically consumerism or necessity, and got to have this and that, regardless if it's a food or a consumable or this or that, or a service or an aside, or no matter what. Everybody is selling something about what they do as a matter of things. Or, an evening conversation, a guy's trying to sell the other person the idea that their opinion is sensible as opposed to the other one. Period. So, see, it's a matter of sales. So, that being said, everybody's into it. So, and these days you're looking at, for example, white-collar America, about 50% of them are going to disappear because of ChatGPT. Big bad thing, because with ChatGPT and AI and that, and things as far as vicarious liability, considerations of qualified as what is entity, and who's accountable for this as far as the buying process. If you haven't talked to anybody real, and then you have a problem in that, where's the result? And they can stymie and hold you to account forever and ever. Okay? Now I'm going to get into something now. It's what I can offer my thing. From the small to the large, and as I say, for the small request and that, very small reasonable price, or maybe a free aside, and you can call up on this, but here it is. I'm going to go after some big guys right now, or some things, so I'm going to talk and basically trade as far as people that are into big market things, that want market share, would like to generate cash flow because perhaps they have an umbrella of people or some fixed costs, a lot of people that rely upon them, and they've got to generate cash, period, and that's the deal. They're a big operation. So on big operations, yes, as far as those things, I've worked in conjunction with large corporations in terms of things, but what can I offer to you? Well, as far as the sequential process, as far as the common sense of the psychologically proven, as far as the presentation, the draw of the opinion, the sensible numerous step thing, as far as the presentation of the service of that, and a psychologically acceptable, but basically presenting the reason for the benefit to buy, on the common sense of it, that basically triggers psychologically, but the person that makes them react on the trust aspect, that relevantly the benefits are presented in a manner and a proper sequence at the end, and the determination and a simple resolve that allows a person to feel comfortable to make a sensible decision. Do you want or not? And yay or nay, and away you go. Period. I can do that. I know those things. And so, as well as that, for example, if a person has a website and things, and they want to be optimized in that, well, again, credit given where credit is due. I studied and basically looked at the psychology of the largest website marketing agency in the world. And small wonder he is. Tip of the hat to Cardell Media out of Britain. Again, you study him. And what does the man do? The simple common thing. He works on the old consultative, sensible psychology of human behavior, and that the people are going to respond to in the common sense of things. As well as that, he's got about 400,000 clients. So his database, if he wants to resolve, he needs some numbers. Essentially, he puts out an email, he does a survey, he gets the actual tangible truth. He gives you truth based on fact, and he doesn't lead you wrong. It's a simple, problem, a sensible thing of the consultative, ethical, professional sales representative or product supplier for decades. You give them truth based on fact and actual quality, and basically value for the money that you get, and on models that are guaranteed to basically do what they say they're going to do. Nothing more or less than that. And as well, but mine is a little more personalized, but it's the same judgments and that, and done the same way. And, the sensibility and large to the small, depending on the marketplace, of this and that. I went through the securities manuals years ago about the obvious, about the comprehensive assessment, the demographics, the potentials of the market, and what's this, and the obvious, and this and that. Plain and simple. Other things. For example, if a person is wants a commercial or a product of this, and how do you optimize? The little ditties. the repetition, the psychology, as far as little rhymes and chimes and that, and the proper order of what makes the order of things that make people obviously buy. How to basically put it on the obvious is the psychological. What attracts a person's attention the most about getting this? Well, I'll give you an idea. What's the biggest thing that people get their attention on when they hear about something? Well, actually, there's two. But number one is there's a reward involved. Oh, a reward or a prize, and what or a free prize that's a reward. And how do you get them to go for the free prize and reward? Psychology, the intention. They got to go and watch the whole presentation to find out what the free prize and the reward and benefit at the end of the presentation, so you get simple common sense. Okay, fine. I know all those things. I know the psychology, the ditties, the obvious words, and I can put little jingles together. Now, the other thing you have right now, and several years ago, I worked for the top marketing executive in the world on the books as far as downline marketing and all these things, and network marketing. And he had over 400,000 clients by the time he was done. I worked with him off and on for about 3 years, regularly on the phone, and essentially. But that time, the market was changing, and he retired. But at that point, all of a sudden, the drift was away, and all of a sudden, people were off into this and the glitz, and all of a sudden, the trend was off to the internet, and you could do it all online. And all of a sudden, people were buying these canned programs and packages from some guy. Oh, yeah, you get into this, and you sign up, and we put you in, and you plug in, and you do exact, just like I do. And the guy's a whiz at it, and he's making money all over the place. So you sign up, and it's a hit and miss. It's fine if you go and you have those talents or you have all the backup to do it, and it's a grind or whatever. But the thing is, for several years, that was it. And as well as that, for example, the proper thing to initiate as far as a conversation on a phone call to basically break the ice, to basically get rid of the defenses of whatever and things, and invariably over time from studying other people that basically in things, I can't remember a gentleman's name, but basically years ago, he was into something where basically the grouping is hours and hours and hours a day. And at the end of the week, if you followed this in hours a day, you would basically get enough hits in the week that you would have your quota. All of a sudden, this guy, everybody in the sales group, all of a sudden, this guy was comfortably had his quota done by middle of Tuesday afternoon and something like that. What's going on there? And essentially, he just figured out a way of set up the thing so that basically on contact, he was dealing into demand where he was in the power position. People really wanted to hear what he had to say. I know these little things. I plugged them in, exactly. I went into a situation for a website marketing agency in website marketing and that, and didn't know much about that, but anything is about marketing. I'd worked on the phone with this executive for many years. Within 3 weeks, the owner showed, and he was the most successful, qualified, credentialed agent in Canada, not in terms of size, but as far as opinion credentials. And here I say, a highly impeccable, very professional, top-notch service provided by that gentleman. And as again, he uses a mentality just about identical to Cardell Media, but it's more personalized. But again, he was a stockbroker and things, highly professional, back until the $2 trade, but then the consultative, the obvious, and the professional, and the blah, 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 and the ethics. You give him what is it? He's not out to some sizzle and schmooze and that and talk you into contract of SEO and then the paradigm's changed and oh God, what are we going to do now? Or say, for example, you got a website and you want some things, well, essentially I can say, well, if basically have somebody out there, a software designer, because as far as setting up maybe, yes, a copyrightable thing that you could do a duplicatable offer as far as a plug-in to people, but I've got a way as far as the lead in and the presentation, the landing page and that, and the simple psychologies you custom set up depending. And basically one spreading a nice email and you get enough people apply, and all of a sudden the return on obvious becomes a viral growth. You don't need to worry about SEO, you don't need to worry about emails, but as far as the database and the people that are depending on that, then the psychology of how to properly set up the autoresponder, the proper drip system, depending on the product, depending on this, depending on that. Everything is different. But you take, for example, a large group that has got a sales force, or let's say network marketing. You've got somebody that's a network marketing company of theirs with several thousand clients. Okay, fair enough. And they've all got to duplicate a website, but well, you get this, and they can go to this, and they'll watch the video and sign up on that. But it's getting lost in the mix again because of paradigms and the pinching and all those things that go on the internet. But it's just not working out again. And it comes down to this. If you know somebody that's got a whole bunch of duplicatable websites, and they want to talk to me, well, fine. And at that point, all I have to do is basically put together a simple format, and and you say, well, this guy here, and exactly, this is me. Hey, if somebody wants to have something far more professional, and all suit and tie, and all Mr. Glitz and Mr. Walter Cronkite, and that's the way it is, blah, blah, blah. Well, fine. I'll give you the script, the common sense, and the psychology. You put it together, put it out, and that's fine. But as far as a big group and that, well, simple thing to make it worth my while. If I put it in, we'll have a prearranged thing that's X number of dollars for the simple format and first front. But as well as that, in terms of a percentage and a paradigm on the simple points that when it goes into the spread and everybody duplicates out. In terms of things, well, maybe I'm going to ask for, in terms of the obvious increase in sales, well, numbers are there. Maybe I'm going to ask 7% on the basic of the net increase. On a big volume, that's not much for you folks, and it's a small chunk because everybody's making more and it doesn't cost you much. Makes it worth my while. Don't work hard, work smart, and that's the way people that work smart in marketing make big money. And guys that taught me for many years, and I was setting up things and doing analyzing, and that's the way it is. Or take somebody that just wants to sell, and they don't know what to sell, and they say, geez, I'd like to get into sales. And they phone up, hi, Lynn, I'll tell you what, I want to know something about what should I be selling? Well, fine. What are your likes? What are your this? What are you that? And stuff. Okay. Well, or have you got something? Well, yes, I do. And I say, well, or what should I be looking for? What's the perfect way to go out and choose something to sell? Well, it depends on your strengths and that, but obviously the ideal thing is something that's consumable, that has word of mouth capability, and away you go. But the thing that gentleman that I was with in the large that had the large 400,000 and on the thing, well, in the comparative that, he basically showed me a simple way that once the thing led, you can basically go, as he said, Lynn, he said, I have never been a salesman in my life, period. He says, all I have ever been is a guy that comes along and helps, and essentially is a question and answer for a person that's out helping somebody else. He says, I've never been a salesman. I said, what? What's going on here? He says, exactly. He said years ago, he said, I got into a company that had a nutritional supplement, and that was it. But he said it had word of mouth capability, and he said it was good. And he said all I did basically was I found enough people around that basically had it, and they were getting results for it. And I just followed up and say, excuse me, but do you know have you got any other friends that might want to hear about this? I'll tell you what. You tell me what, and we'll get a hold of them, and you just introduce, simple thing. Have you got a couple of minutes? I'll tell you what, I got my buddy here. I'm taking this stuff, and it's really good, and at any rate, I brought him along, but I said, I just want to tell you a little bit about it. Would you like to hear about, hey, it's really working for me. The trust, the buddy, sure, what you got? Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I got my buddy here. He'll answer the questions. What's it all about? And okay. Well, basically, it's this, that, and the next thing is, would you like to try one? Yeah, okay. And I'll tell you what, there's a money-back guarantee, no problem. Where you going? And he said, that's it. He says, all I did was I get enough people going in order that they had a word of mouth and that. And he says, at that point, I just responsibly follow up and say, hey, how's it going? Is it working? Yeah. Got any friends that want it? And away you go. And he says, many, many years later, 400,000, never did a sale in my life. And he said, and that's the truth. But he said, and he says that is the truth. But as far as the proper format and the duplicatable and the things that he talked me about, how to criteria things, how to price, how to introduce to market, the subtle nuances of that. But as that, and as well as that, when I was in website agents, marketing agencies, and paradigms, and network marketing, I was into other things. So I was always, signing up or basically going on to conference calls or conferring with other guys on the psychology of the sales of this in terms of that. So if you get a different breakdown as far as a matrix system, how to optimize it basically in terms of the matrix system and how to sell those things. Or the other thing is for a person like these days, oh gosh, well if I plug into this system, I'm going to be a gazillionaire. Isn't that wonderful? Well, that's fine, but here's a simple thing. If you got a duplicatable website, you got a product, and it's got word of mouth thing to it and that, well, I'll tell you what, is it working out for, well, no, or we're doing this and it's prime the pump and stop. Well, I'll tell you what. Give me the script, give me the product, I'll look at the script, I'll give you the script, and then go and record a short little thing on YouTube, and we'll put it up there, and then basically I'll show you how to do the duplicatable, or put something out on Craigslist. They go to the YouTube thing, and then they respond to you, or basically there's a twig or a kick around, so the people, and then you can responsibly phone up, hi, how are you doing? Just a courtesy call, notice you're there. Do you have any questions any further questions you might have about the product? And don't worry, for the time being, you're not putting, do you want to buy? No, you're being helpful. The age-old thing, are you here to basically give or to take from me? Are you here to help me or just help yourself to take me for all I got and basically junk or this or that? Plain and simple. So, what happens? And the simple thing is, you got your duplicatable website, you put out a little video on that, in a world where nobody trusts anymore, then you're the horse's mouth. And then I'll teach you these things about, but here's how I get a person excited about these. Yeah, I don't know, because, well, here's the thing. You want to know the realities of that, slow but sure. There's no miracle. These people are saying things that are too good to be true. They always are. Oh, but you can get binary training for $250 and you're going to be a gazillionaire. Excuse me, but I've seen those things and all those things out in I've checked the legality. They're nothing but a bunch of bogus scams with a bunch of AI, with a whole bunch of real life fake celebrities saying all these things. That is fake, and it's against the law, and it's a bunch of but AI and the people that are associated with them, well, shame on them. Because they're just kicking your money, and it might work for a few months or a few weeks. Then they talk you into putting in the big drop, and all of a sudden, the paradigm changed. We don't know. The money's gone. Oops. Well, we couldn't help couldn't help it. We don't know, but it was just the market. No, the money's gone, but basically it went in their back pocket. But there's no way you can prove that. But you got taken. But the other way is here. I'll tell you what. But the thing is, a lot of people, I need the big truck, I got to make the big commission on that. So a lot of people figure, I got to sell something that's worth a whole bunch of money so I can make a big commission. But the thing is, more people have $50 than 500,000 or 50,000 or 5,000. That's right. So if a nutrition or a consumable or something for the word of mouth or something, it's as simple as this. You tell the guy, well, I'll tell you what, if you do it this way, and you've never been into it, get into the product, get a feel for it so you genuinely see that it's working, so you basically have a sincerity on the fact that people can feel that you know that so in the first month you get into it, and then you get the benefits. Second month you find one other person, and they get into it, and that's it. Okay, so now there's one person. At the end of the second month, you're going to find another person, they find then 3 persons, and then you duplicate and you follow up, and then the next month, the third month, then it's 6 people, and then the fourth month, then it's 12 people, and the fifth month, then it's 24, and the sixth month, it's 48, and then seventh month, it's 100, and the eighth month, it's 200, and the ninth month, it's 400, and number 10, it's 800, and number 11, then it's 1,600, and number 12, all of a sudden, you're 3,200 people, and you didn't hardly do any more than just get one new person a month and help follow up on that. 3,200 people. And let's say you're making $2 or $3 a bottle off of $3,200 sale on just one bottle alone, despite all the other things that they might say this is really good. Geez, $3,200 a month just for taking it easy, and all of a sudden you're at 10 grand a month, and it just keeps growing and growing, and you things like that. And then all of a sudden in month 13, then it's 6,000. Month 14, it's 12,000. Month 15, it's 24,000. Month 16, it's 50,000, 100,000. In under 2 years, you got 200,000 people in the business. And let's say some people buying don't, there's a little bit of attrition to fall off, but cut it in half and 200,000 people. And, geez, you're making, well, maybe only $1 a bottle instead of $3. Well, geez, isn't that terrible? You're making $200,000 a month after 2 years' work. We're just finding a simple plan on a website, listening to me. Let me set you up with it, put together a proper format, and it's guaranteed an old model from a guy that basically proved it. Because once you get the guy, he shows you how to make the phone call, how to set up the appointment, because it's guaranteed, and to set up so you're dealing with power, so the person actually wants to talk to you as opposed to you deal one-on-one. And that's one way. So somebody's got a large group, or somebody has got something, or this and that, excuse me, but in the background, do I know what I'm doing? Yes, I do. And why am I not doing it? Because I'm 68 years old, and I got some things in the background that once the thing clears, and yes, a several $100 trillion in the real forte, and some engineering, some sciences, and some things that I have the equivalent of realistically a couple of highly involved and integrated referential extrapolation aside things off of some basic engineering principles and air and living conditions and environmentals and the whole yah. Because in the background, yes, I've got some contacts and some long-term credibility from the top to the bottom, and a whole bunch of things, and a whole bunch of different sciences, whether it has to do with automobile efficiencies, air pollution, electronics, electricity, etc., and interreferentialities. And yes, I do know what I'm talking about, but at this point, because for the last 2 or 3, 4 years, with COVID and a whole bunch of things and change up, and just as a matter of integrity and ethics, all of a sudden the market had changed, the paradigm had changed, and as far as making phone calls and that, and I just decided I wasn't going to try and talk people into this stuff until it wasn't going to work. I've sat back and watched AI and this, that, and the next thing. And it's got to the point that basically everything that is old is new again, and we're right back to where we started, where the face-to-face is the most reliable, and it always has been. And essentially, I have a track record and proven things in the background, that as far as just the public relations, or on a sunny day or something and going out in the neighborhood with the tape measure and that, when I was working construction or engineer building design or renovations or hands-on things and things, yes, and I was consulting in some regard as far as earth berm and solar and things to architects by the time I was 24, 25. By the time I was 21, I helped in the design and the build and the sale of 31 or 32 show homes at one time, production systems, runs, criteria, and that cost. Yes, and essentially I've got one of those memories, and I am a visual mathematician and a complex intellectual and stuff, and I got one of those. I'm just one of those weird guys that has done those things, and over the years, I was the kind of guy that. And as well as that, grew up on a farm, and now where you learned about tools and banging stuff. And so on job sites and learning in the process and that, it was a case that, okay, well, here, look at this. This is how you do this, blah, blah, blah. You see this and that, and fine, fair enough. Okay, you do it. And then I'd be doing it, and then I'd streamline and use engineering attitude, streamlining production efficiencies, plug it in, where you go. And as far as design formats, criteria, and that over the things, I put a lot of things together. And yes, as far as designs and technologies and stuff and that, well, Yes, as far as as far as things, as far as yes, flux dynamics and literally flux and anti-gravity and yes, there's a whole bunch of things going on in the background that the big guys and stuff. Well, there's a couple of issues a long time. Yes, intellectual properties and that they were stolen outright from me. I held them to account, but basically, essentially, I guess I have the personal satisfaction and somewhat of a reputation. I do know what I'm doing, and I've got lots of designs and concepts, and I've proven it. And essentially, I shared it ethically and that, and those people that had all the money, they stole it outright. So I guess they got the money, and they've got the evidence, and they've got the and all the bells and whistles on it. But in terms of things, are they better or lesser, more less ethical businessmen or trustworthy than me? Well, essentially, I played heads up. They took the money and run. So can you trust the bigger the corporations, or just because of the glitz, because they say so, or it's got all the bells and whistles? Or do you want to talk to a horse's mouth? They're going to actually prove on paradigms and things, and you're in charge because you've got the money. I'm going to charge you for it, and you can take the money and run, but at the same time, that's fine. And no, I won't hold you to account. That's fine, because when the air cleans, air clears, because essentially, I just like basically helping and designing and doing some things. So I guess those people that have to be really, really rich in that and making their own lives a living hell and doing all these things, and they're doing things that everybody else is getting a little annoyed and victimized by, well, that's their headache. But their style of business, they kind of did it to themselves. But if you do want to basically plug in and do some things, yes, I do know what I'm doing. And as far as points in that, I do have a project in the background, and essentially, I'd like to raise, give or take, say $8 or $10 million, which is not a big deal. And as far as some things in the plug-in, it's that, as far as some sales group or somebody out there, like I've noticed some guys out there, I won't mention the guy's name. I'm not going to write off the guy's name, but the guy is nuclear charged, and he's got a great attitude, and he's proved that he's got some on that, and he's got the power and the energy and the motivation. I'm not that kind of guy, and basically, but that's the thing is, authenticity, folks. I always, back when I was younger and that, and all suit and tie, and when that was the thing, but the authenticity always carries more weight than this perfect, I'm so professional, blah, 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 and everybody goes, well, geez, I'd sure like to sell that product, but I'm not all professional. You don't need those things. But that's the other thing. If a people has a sales group, or let's say a large corporation that essentially wants some motivation or some common senses for the salespeople and that, or people that things that want to sell, but they want to get over the hurdles. As far as all the psychologies of the common sense of the realities of things, oh, geez, I could never sell, or I'm afraid of this, and you kind of say, why? What do you mean you're afraid? How you can't do that, and why? Why can't you? Be honest, because you're not aware of the simple matter, how to do it, correct? That's right. So that's why you're afraid of or feel uncertain, you don't know how to do it, right? If I told you the common sense of how simply you have to put yourself in the simple understanding of the frame of mind so you could do it, would you be open-minded to hearing for a couple of minutes? Fine. Okay, well, in order to basically have a certainty or a peace of mind about doing something, you have to have a feeling of confidence in what you're selling and how you basically approach getting a hold of the person, and have feeling the self-worth and the certainty that you're not going to basically have any concern about how you go about it. How does that sound? Fine. Fair enough. Well, let's see the product. Well, there's the product. Fine. That's fine. Now let's look at the format. If you phone somebody up and he's on the other end and he's talking to you and you present yourself in an inoffensive regard, and so you're not going to offend them, and basically you're going to be polite and you present something to him, and he looks at it and you do it so he's not going to be nervous, upset, so you get a favorable response one way or the other. Do you really think he's going to be upset about that or angry at you? No. So if I show you how to do it, do you think you could do that? Probably. And I'll tell you what, if the guy's really worked and he gets all burnt and he's pissed off anyways, whose fault is that? His. How often do you think that happens? I don't know. I'll tell you what, I was door knocking and phoning on phones for years, and you know what? In 5 or 6 years of door knocking, I had one guy get all upset at me, and you know why? He didn't have his hearing aid in, and he misunderstood what I said, and as soon as they qualified it, we had a laugh about it, and as well as that, he didn't buy, but basically, he gave me the recommendation. His daughter was looking exactly for what I had, and we sat around and we had a cup of coffee, and he phoned up his daughter. She came over, and one thing led to the other. It's as simple as that. The obvious. So if you've got a sales group or something, you need some motivations, or the obvious things, or the professionalism, or the proper orders in that. From the small to the large, essentially, we're to say, basically, if you're a big corporation and that, I'm not going to be saying no. I'm not going to retire off you on the big chunk up front, but essentially, working smart and basically giving you results that says, boy, this is a bargain in terms of the deal, and maybe, well, percentages are there for a point, and as they say, the 7% situation or whatever, well, that's usually, you know, numbers and percentages are there for a reason on the split and the cost and that, but basically on the number and that, if you say, well, I'll tell you what, if you give my sales staff a thing, you set these things up and basically on the points, and we put down a piece of paper that says, and click me in and that, yeah, I'll give you 7 points on the increase of sales on the net. And they say, okay, what's your gross volume of sales in a month? I don't know, 20, $30 million. I'll tell you what, 20, 30 million, and I say, what's your net on that? What's your margin? Well, I mean, don't tell me everything, but let's say on $20 million, let's say your net margin, fair on something, whatever. Maybe you're running for the sales commissions. Maybe you're running at well, let's say 30 points. Okay, 20 million. So basically, maybe you get 6 million in the tank at the end of the month. Fine, fair enough. Well, let's cut that in half just to be conservative. Let's say you got 3 million at the end of the month. Fair enough. I'm not greedy, but I say walk before we run. But I'll tell you what. If it's clumsy in that, on the basic of say, let's say 3 million or something. If you guarantee me 1% on 3 million and you got 300,000 at the end of the month and it's more, that's fine. You can be a good guy. You can net up to the balance. And if it's 1%, then we'll hold the line and we'll just go and basically we'll fine tune and improve from there. But some old things like, and it's out of a textbook by a guy that was an absolute genius. I still go to that textbook as far as the quantifying, the obvious thing, the test market and the run. But essentially, you get something and say, gosh darn, this isn't selling for some reason. Say, well, let's have a look at your marketing process and this, or what's your feedback, and let's do some comparatives and say, buddy, it looks like for some reason somebody's pinching you down as far as AI and some dirty tricks out there. I might recommend that you do a scan on that, and here's the people basically to plug in and do a clean out on that. Or, basically, why worry about it? To tell you what, to shift over, let's get your people into some live action, some things so they can enjoy the face-to-face, because let's face it, sitting around and pushing the button and keeping your fingers crossed and SEO and all that gets to be a real drag, and you're just sitting around staring and doing nothing, and you're keeping your fingers crossed that some guru with that flavor of the month's going to work this month. No, the face to face. So with that, folks, if you want to get a hold of me in that, from the bottom to the top in that, or just cash down and stuff, and somebody says, look, in terms of what I hear in that, essentially, here's the deal. We're going to sit and we're going to have a Zoom call for an hour, and you tell me what you got, and before we go on good faith in that, I got X number of dollars. I got your bank stuff on that, and essentially, I'll hold you. You can hold me to it, and basically, you're going to have this recording as a Zoom call, and you can call me a dirty dog and rebroadcast it and show everybody in the world I'm a dirty dog if I don't write the end of the check at the end of the hour. And I'll tell you what, You proved to me that you can do what you say you can. Next number of dollars at the end of the hour, it's definitely there. And essentially, I'll tell you what, 2 or 3 points in the increase of sale ongoing and that and stuff, and it's fine. You got it. Or the other thing on Matrix is the margins or how to optimize in that. Essentially, I've studied it, things. It's all on practicals and math and proven formulas and stuff. Because essentially, if it isn't on a proven paradigm that's got value and on the merit of a professional ethics, and you're basically giving people good advice that's going to work, well, essentially that's the best way to do it. And what do I have to prove for it? I'm not the richest sales guy. I'm not anything, but in terms of things over the years, I have been known to basically turn numbers 2 and 3 times larger than the sales group, or basically bring in and work to the very top end in a very, very welcome format as one of the guys with some of the biggest marketing guys and things and experts in the industry over the years in numerous different aspects, whether it's real estate, energy board consulting, assessments, automobile, you name it. It's just comprehensive evaluations. You plug in the paradigms and the demographics. It's not human psychology. It's not magic, but as well as that, hours and hours of basically going out and going on the internet or attending conference calls or evaluating or signing up and looking at the lead-in and the capture and the walk-in of the things and fine-tuning and then researching about the guys that have this new things and that. And essentially, I won't make any money an awful lot of guys, but essentially if I see something there and I'd say, there's a guy out there that basically has a particular plug-in that would basically work for it fine, and I'll give you his name and that, and you go talk to that guy on the merit that I say it's him, and you go talk to the guy, and if he gives you something and basically it will increase your sales, well, at that point, on the basic of the increase of the sales, he makes his cut, and basically, I'll get you for the money after it's definitely making you money. Hey, I'm not going to take the money and run unless you see up front that it's damn well worth it and you can afford it. Fair enough. It's just common old business and sales and marketing the way it's been done since the days that basically when Joe Costman was on Johnny Carson with the Spud gun and Paul Popeil and marketing became the big deal. And dare I say, Joe Costman back when he had that briefcase full of cassettes and that, and was God knows how many hundreds of dollars, and I bought it, let's see, that would have been 1991, and I was running down to California from Saskatchewan to see the former head of the United Nations Environmental Council and rummage around some air ionization, do a few sales calls around some showrooms in the Sherman Oaks area and stuff and things, and spend some time with my buddy down there, and dare I say, I had the Joe Costman. I hopped in my car, ran the cassettes, plugged him in, and loaded up. And when I got to LA, I couldn't help but stopping in at Joe Costman's office because I had a heck of an inspiration. But it was just a little hole in the wall, and his nephew was sitting there early in the morning. And hi, how are you doing? No, Joe, he's off somewhere. And I said, well, by the way, and he says, tell you what, yeah, he's gone, but I'll tell you what. Gary Carroll, he lives up somewhere on the way back to something. It was on the way over to Reno or something. Gary Carroll was the guy that had the pet rock. Stopped in and saw him, and he says, this is a pretty good idea. You talk to someone and so-and-so. Tell him you were talking to me. And I said, what happened? He said it was a one-hit wonder. We got into something else as pet rock, but he says, he says, just a craze. But he says, I'm back just doing standard marketing again. And I said, my mom had a good one for it. And he says, what? Oh, she said, well, why wouldn't you just make up a whole bunch of pink rocks with lingerie and laces on them and call them hot rocks? And he had a giggle, and he says, I wish I would have talked to my mom after the pet rock first run. He said, I could have made a few extra bucks. But he says that craze is over. He says, have a good day. And came back home, and the rest is history. But life has been interesting, but in the overall, once this multi-hundred trillion, if it ever gets going at this time, the guys that are trying to stay, well, who cares? But because the thing is, if it is some of the truth of the matter up at that top end and all that executive stuff, sorry, I walked away from that when I was 27, 28 years old, when I was running at the top end, and I had enough then. So if I get my few points off it and I become fabulously whatever, as far as a few points, I guess that's fine. But in the meantime, stay with the real world, and the fact that more people got $50 than 500 gazillion zillion, and hey, boardrooms and dealing with people that would prefer to get clever and fine print in the contract and take you for lawsuits or take the money and run and basically leave you stranded. No, I'll just deal with something I can count on and basically provide to people that would like to have something they can count on, some reliable advice, and stay real. So, as I say, if you want to buy, sell, you got a group of things and you want to plug in an integration thing, because you got to get back to the old horse's mouth and the face-to-face, because AI and all those things, and now AI, they say, that's the thing of the past. It was the sizzle of the month for about 3.5. It was the sizzle of the ages for about 3.5 months, and now everybody realizes that AI, artificial intelligence, it is artificial. Is it intelligent? I guess it's intelligent in some ways, but does it make sense, or has it become so real you can't trust it? That's right, it's so real that you can't trust it, and we're right back to, not to the Stone Age, but back to the good old days and that. So, hey, if you want to be at the good old days format so you can plug in with all this modern new stuff and the clickety-click of the mouse, and learn it from a guy that basically said that I was as good as anybody who'd ever worked in the business, who was the top marketing executive in the world as far as building downlines and all those things in the process. Here I am. He said I was as good as anybody in the business. He says there was only one other guy that had been with him for years. And in that particular group, when you hit the top end, as far as the guy that was one of those of the many that he had under him, you were making a minimum of $7 million a year. But as far as cost criteria, things evaluating of a marketplace, whether it's a nutritional product or basically a housing division or a criteria or a real estate, simple known paradigms and things, and with the upcoming trends of the new against the old and that, and what the marketplace is against the top end and things, as far as how to read the market from the top down and know the trends and all those things. Yes, I do know what I'm talking about. And some guys out at the top end and that, when they stole some things, and I held them to account, and it was just kind of, they decided they were going to shirk me off and did something a little, well, unkind or unthoughtful to me. Well, I basically did something as far as the self-defense and held them to account, and geez, there was a real disappointment about a several $100 billion drop in market and value and share value and that, and they're whimpering and they're blaming me because they basically did something that basically precipitated that I defended myself and took them to account. Well, I'm basically always asking if there was a few realistic percentage points on industry scale up front in the first place, which would have cost them not too much and would have made me a comfortable thing on fair and ethical business, as it should have been done, that they do with anybody else as far as the big guys, but they thought to skate me off. Well, for the sake of a nice piece that I would have had in that, it would have been nice, and it would have been fair business, as it would have been done, but they ended up holding the bag, and they have that thing that they are so proud of that's making stuff, but they lost far more than they could have gained by just doing fair business, and I could have had my money, and everybody would have been happy, but in the meantime, man, they were the losers for it, and I wasn't buying anything that it wasn't before, but actually I gained because I had the reputation as a result of that, of knowing how to design paradigms and website strategies and that. And as far as if anybody else is looking for a really good website thing to opportunize and some things as far as big cash flows and that and stuff that really that could cash flow and be that reality on a simple paradigm of things to do something on a charitable aspect and do some things and a benefit and things on a simple age-old thing that's on a piece of paper and simple and formatted, so you're not basically held contingent to be piracies or things. Yeah, I got that. And it'd cash flow and it'd plug into that system they've got, and you don't even have to pay, and they spent all the money on the infrastructure and it's a freebie. And dare I say, am I going to tell you how it works? No, but as far as the simple turnaround, as far as the cycling system, as far as the charitableness setup, and that basically the paradigm and the repeat system, I call it the eternal triangle. But the psychology said that it is eternal because it's got a psychological favor to it. And basically no AI or no sales pitch or no yah-yah on the internet can do it. It comes down to the face-to-face, the person-to-person, sitting around and, oh, by the way, and hi, and can I tell you about this? I got a friend in the background to explain it. Well, if you've got a big network marketing company out there and that, I'd be happy to talk to you as long as you're not associated with some other people in the background. And if you are, I would be real sketchy and hedgy about basically doing any disclosure until the money's on the table and the dollars are signed, and then I'll give you the format, and if you like, and you see it, then it's binding, and everything's locked in. If not, in terms of guilt by association, possibly people that I might just choose not to have anything to do with you anyways on principle, but you can give me a call and give it some consideration. Don't be afraid to make some money, and some ethical money, a good old-fashioned way of basically on the merits of something that's worth it, and something to be trusted, and the good old personal touch, which has always been proven the best, and we're right back to needing it. As I said a few months ago, or rather a few years ago, when I saw an ad on television about 2008 or 2009, and there was a bunch of little toddlers doing kung fu fighting in diapers or something with some Pampers commercial. And I said to a friend of mine, I said, when you see that, I said, it's not going to be too long before we can't trust reality or anything that we see on television or the internet, and here we are. So with that, this really is me, and if you want to check and give me a phone call at 306-485-9976. My name is Lynn Johnson. I live in southeast Saskatchewan, about 70 miles from the geographical center of the North American continent. Conveniently located close to everybody if you want to come up and say hello. And I'm also a very good and capable golf instructor in the natural golf style, which has been proven at the optimum mechanics and chiropractically perfect, and over 1,200 times less variables to go out of whack than the traditional style, and was also independently by an anatomical scientist and physicist of the world's most perfect golf striker, gentleman by the name of Mo Norman, and every professional in the world always contended that was exactly the truth. But so whatever your excuse is to give me a call, well, we'll have a coffee, and if you drop in, like I say, if you want to basically leverage and really work a hard deal on me and take advantage of me, well, as they say, I'm a one tough cookie to basically do business with, unless of course you do have some homemade oatmeal cookies, and then things might realistically work very much in your favor. And just a little insight. I always like to give the buying public a bit of an upper hand and a bit of an edge when they're coming in to deal with some old clever shyster like me. Best regards.